Hello, CAD Junkies. I'm Scott Schneider, film designer, and this is Rhino's Tip of the Horn. I wanted to cover in this episode talking about render modes again. Now, I talked about render modes in my first episode, but that was specifically dealing with how I use different render modes in the modeling process and how I use custom render modes to speed up that process. What I want to talk about today is how to customize a render mode or create a new one. I'm not going to get into in-depth detail on every single option, but I'm going to cover the basics for today. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to options, and you can access that through the standard toolbar and by going and finding the little gear that's icon that's here, and you can click on that, and that will bring up your options for Rhino. And under appearance, and sometimes that will be collapsed, but if you expand appearance and then go to advanced settings, you'll see that it lists all the different render modes that are in here. And on the left-hand side under advanced settings, you can see all the different render modes, and each one of these has the ability to expand that and customize each one of those. So if you click on that, it brings up all the options for that render mode where you can customize it. But what we want to do is we want to create a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New, and you'll see that this viewport changed, and now it's giving us all the options for this new display mode. So the first thing we want to do is name it so that it has its own identification that's separate from everyone else. So I'm just going to give this a quick name, just call it, let's just call this Silver for now. And that's the first step. And then the next thing we want to do is just set up a quick background, and that's referring to what you see back here. I'm going to go for the default for this particular example, which is just a 4-color gradient. I want to make sure Shade Objects is on. And then I'm going to go down, I'm going to skip all these because I don't really need these for this particular one. I'm going to go down to the most important one, which is Objects Color. And you do have different options for that. Objects Color, Single Color, Rendering Material, and Custom Material for all objects. What we want today is Custom Material for all objects. I'm going to click on Customize. And under the Customize tab, I want to make sure that I check Override Objects Color. And I'm going to leave that at a dark gray. I'm going to zero all these out because I don't want any of these options because I'm going to use this as an environment map. And the next thing I want to do is just go all the way down here to the bottom where it says environment. And if I click on that check mark, it'll bring up this window, it'll bring up your open window. And you need to go to wherever your environment maps are kept. Now in Rhino, they keep them in a environment folder within the Rhino subfolder. I keep all of mine in a document folder under my documents just so I can get to them a little easier. So what I want to select is 3 Light Silver, which is this custom one that I've made. And I'm going to select Open. And you can adjust the intensity of that by just dragging this slider, or you can go over here and select that and type in the amount. I'm going to leave it at 100%, and I'm going to leave everything else at 0. And just go ahead and click OK. And I'm not going to set the back face settings, and I'm going to explain that in a different video. And on this, I want to turn off ISO curves. I want to turn off mesh wires, and I'm going to leave everything else where it's at. And then I'm going to set this to 1, and that is referring to this edge weight that's shown on the very edges of all your surfaces. And I'm going to leave all the lighting as default. So that is just a really quick overview of that, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And it's updating the settings here. And if I go up here to my list, you'll come down here, and now you can see that there is a silver. And if I click on that, there is my new render mode showing that silver environment map. Now you can easily go in and customize that and change it to do whatever you want. So if I go back to silver here, and as you can see by clicking on that, it brings up my options again. I can change the environment and take this into a blue value if I want. Click OK, and you can see here that it is now changed over here. And if I want to change my bottom left to kind of be in a similar value, maybe a little bit brighter, and as you can see there, it's changed. And then if I want to change any of these other options, I can do so. If I want to show my ISO curves, I can click on that, and now you're seeing all the ISO curves. If there was a mesh in here, I could turn it on to show mesh wires and so forth and so on. And then the edge thickness here, as you can see here, by just dialing that number up, you can see how it's affecting the edge color and the edge weight. And I typically like to keep that at about 1 for most of my work. And in some cases, you can just set it to 0 and it'll turn it completely off. All right, and then front face settings and back face settings. This is just for calling back faces, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but basically this is how the back face of a surface is shown. And I'll just give you a quick example here in a render mode that I have here. And as you can see here, you'll notice here that on the outside surface, it's this shiny blue. On the inside, it's sort of this transparent blue. And that's so I can tell if the surface has been flipped, if the surface normals have been flipped. And that can be important when you're modeling and trying to perform certain options, such as the Boolean difference. But we'll get into more detail on those further down the road. Hope this helps. Talk to you next time, and thank you for watching.